All right. Pete, I'm really excited to hear you talk about The Simpsons here now.
Thanks. So we can debate. I think I'm kind of the exact right age for The Simpsons. So I was 9 when Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire played originally in December of 1989, and I did watch it live. I never saw it on Tracy Ullman, which is where it started. But yeah, so the first time a proper Simpsons episode aired live, I was watching it live. And then there was this huge zeitgeist, which you're probably familiar with. The first couple years it was on the air, it was just this massive cultural touchstone, but in kind of the wrong ways. I don't know, it was a cultural touchstone like how like Taylor Swift is a cultural touchstone. Yeah, like it's kind of everybody loved it, you know. And there was, I guess, a certain level of controversy. I absolutely had friends like what Austin was talking about, whose like parents wouldn't let them watch The Simpsons, usually more like religious families. That was the case.
And we need a nation closer to the Waltons than the Simpsons.
My parents didn't care, and it pretty accurately reflected my family dynamic too, which is why I connected to it so much. But yeah, so, you know, being like 9, 10, 11, and there's this big cultural cachet behind it, I did kind of drift away, weirdly right when it got very good. In my mind, the peak Simpsons is seasons 4 through 10, thereabouts. But around the time that season 4 came out, that's when I stopped watching it live so much. But I came back around to it pretty quickly thereafter, once I was old enough to get the more adult jokes. So like around the time I was 17 or so, I kind of went back and caught back up. Seasons 1 through 15 or so, I've seen those episodes like a bajillion times. Not so much recently, though. I was kind of worried when I got the invite to participate in this podcast. I was like, man, I don't have time to do the research to shake all the rust off. Like, I've seen them a bunch, but it's been years at this point. I'm not sure that I've seen anything past season like 22 or so. I think they're currently on season 33, so I can't attest to the current quality. But then that said, kind of being 9 when it first hit and became popular, like I was there for all the action figures. Like, they were, you know, initially these kind of boring action figures that were just like plastic blobs that didn't do anything, but then there were the cooler ones like 10 years later that you like plugged them into Springfield locales and you pressed a button and they spoke a couple of lines of dialogue. And I've got all the kid robot ones. They're in my bedroom, like in like a nerdy thing on the wall. But yeah, like I got all the DVDs when they came out, and actually there was that store in Kirkwood that would sell me the season box sets like a day or two before they came out, so I would always specifically go there so I could get them a day or two early. Like, it has always kind of been a big part of my life.
Stop laughing, you imbecile! Don't you realize how close you just came to killing yourself?
In recent years, I have wanted to make a project. Weirdly, I got the idea, I think, kind of toward the end of lockdown in 2020, where I want to just do kind of like a journal, you know, like front to back, just watch every single episode in order, and maybe not take like a lot of notes, but make, you know, a little bit of commentary, like this is one of the best, this is one of the worst, whatever. That's such a big endeavor. I feel like I wouldn't finish it at this point. They're nearing episode 750, so that's a whole lot of hours of television. So I think I drift away before I finished it. Joe was saying that he thinks season 5 is the best, and season 5 is incredible. I think I vote season 8 is the best. But still, there's no real wrong answer between like season 4 and 9.
Thank you, son. And do you think you could stop the casual swearing?
Hell yes.
That's my boy.
Yeah, I guess that's the long and short of it.
All right. Pete, I am really curious to hear your thoughts about The Simpsons movie.
So, I was working as a film critic in St. Louis when this movie came out. We're recording this on Nope weekend, and they kept the plot of Nope so under wraps. It was kind of the same thing with the Simpsons movie. Like, even circa 2007, the Simpsons was seemingly like past its prime, and like the general consensus was that it wasn't so good anymore, should maybe be canceled, and here we are 15 years later and it's still on. I don't agree with that consensus for what it's worth, but that still was kind of the public feeling. And then even the people that, you know, like loved it and stood up for it, they're like, it kind of seems like the wrong time for a movie. Like, the movie should have come out. Incidentally, initial talks, I mean, there'd been talks of a Simpsons movie forever, but the season 4 opener, Camp Krusty, was originally going to be a movie. That was going to be the Simpsons movie.
How could you, Krusty? I'd never lend my name to an inferior product.
They drove a dump truck full of money up to my house. I'm not made of stone.
That's kind of the start of the really, really good run of The Simpsons. Anyway, yeah, it seemed like that was around the time for The Simpsons movie and not 2007. And then here, they weren't really talking about it publicly and not a whole lot was known. And then even the press screening, at least in St. Louis, the press screening was at 7 p.m. the day before it opened. So like, you saw the movie and then you had to go home and write a review in like 3 hours. So my review is basically like, hey, it's actually pretty good. I'm thankfully I don't hate it, you know, but that was a lot of the initial reaction. It's like, oh, phew, it's not awful. I do think It's really good. I've watched it. I saw it 3 times in the theater, which is unusual for me. And I've watched it a whole bunch of times since, including twice in the past week. I do think it holds up well. It's not the best. It's not anywhere near as good as the best episodes of The Simpsons, but it does hit kind of a miraculous sweet spot where it feels like a classic episode of The Simpsons that you just haven't seen before.
You have to go out there, face that mob, and apologize for what you did.
But they'll kill Grandpa! I'm part of the mob!
I think that's a really, really amazing trick, considering a lot of things. One is that The Simpsons is so episodic. You know, like, they don't have season arcs, but they don't even do, like, multi-part episodes for the most part. There's Who Shot Mr. Burns, which is part 1 and 2. That's the only one that comes immediately to mind. Each episode is so self-contained, and they're 22 minutes long, and there tends to be that funny, you know, like, MacGuffin opening to where, like, the first 5 minutes of the 22 minutes has nothing to do with the main plot. Like, the plots are so short and tight. And here, this one, they stretch it out. It's about 4 times the length of an average episode. And I don't think they compromise, like, the tone or the humor or, like, the heart of the show at all. It just does feel pretty legitimately like a classic episode of the show. And like I said, maybe not the best, but still, I think a lot of the gags are really funny. And just, like, throwaway ones are funny. You know, like when Homer's eating, like, the hot dog and Bart shoots it out of his hand and just takes another hot dog out of his pocket and keeps eating that one casually. I'm like, a lot of that stuff really works. A lot of the writing is really clever. One of the best lines in the movie is when Homer lovingly corrects Bart and says that it's the worst day of your life so far, but then there's the emotional payoff at the end of the movie. I think that stuff is really to be admired. I credit most of the success of the things that I've been talking about with the fact that they at least kind of got the original writers' room back together for this movie. I don't remember exactly when it went down, like around, if it was immediate or it came a couple seasons in, but Sam Simon very famously put together one of the best comedy writing teams, like writers' rooms in television history. And like by the time the movie was written and produced and eventually released, most of the writers' room had gone off to other things. So like all the best writers were gone by that point.
So long, Stinktown!
The one real treasure is John Swartzwelder, who wrote, I want to say 59 episodes of The Simpsons. He's still the most credited screenwriter of The Simpsons, but he'd left a few years prior and he did work on the movie. But yeah, so like they say in the commentary, for example, you know, like they're trapped like carrots line is the Swartzwelder line. He wrote the lyrics to the Spider Pig song, but he's sort of reclusive and sort of curmudgeonly. I guess it's fair to say he's very reclusive. There's almost no pictures that exist of him. He's done one interview in his whole life, and they tricked him into about 90 seconds of an audio commentary one time, but aside from that, he always turned down any opportunity to do audio commentaries.
Oh, hi, is John Swartzwelder there?
Who?
John?
Yes.
Is this John?
This is John. Who's this?
John, it's Mike Scully from The Simpsons.
Oh, hey, hi.
Yeah, so we're giving you a call. You're on the air right now. Do you mind?
No, not at all.
Wow! Hey, wow! Yay. John, we just wanted to verify your existence for the fans.
Wonderful. How much money do I get for that?
I don't know how much credit we can put directly in Swartzwelder's lap, because there's 11 credited writers and he's one of them. And then among the other credited writers are, like, I want to say it's 3 or 4 previous showrunners of The Simpsons. Like, it's all the main Simpsons talent from the best years of The Simpsons. So I think the producers getting that team back together is what made this movie the success that it is. But then on to other points, like Ethan was talking about the quality of the animation, they do a really good job of making it more cinematic. And I do like that gag with Frank flying across the screen and taking it from 177 to 235. And I think it works better theatrically. It doesn't work quite as well at home. But yeah, the crowd scenes and stuff like that, there is kind of like a scale and spectacle that both you don't see really like on not just the TV version of The Simpsons, but like any TV at all. Like each character, it's usually a recognizable character from elsewhere in the series, or even like when they're in the church and things like that. Like there is kind of an attention to detail in crowd scenes that you don't get. But yeah, I think it befits both kind of like the epic scale of the movie and the switch from the small screen to the big screen. There's a lot of little details like that I think they did a really good job of paying attention to. And also, I mean, it's funny. I don't know. I don't mean to take like the joie de vivre out of it. Like I like this movie because it's super funny. Like, that's the end of the story. But yeah, 2007 when it came out, that was such a good year for movies. That was, There Will Be Blood and Zodiac and No Country for Old Men and The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford and Juno, 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days. It was when The Host was released in America. There were so many good movies in 2007, and this was one of the best. If my top 10 list that year, this was my number 2 favorite movie, despite that I just named, 10 really good movies. A lot of that admittedly is biased. I don't know. I love The Simpsons, and I was so glad that I didn't hate this movie. And I think that knee-jerk reaction of, oh, thank God I don't hate it. The more I watch it, I probably like it more and not less. So, it's not just a relief that they didn't screw it up. It's actually appreciating how good it actually is.
All right. Final thoughts. We'll start with Pete.
One thing I meant to say earlier, actually, is when The Simpsons was hitting really big, circa, like 1990, Fox wasn't in most of America. Fox was kind of a fledgling TV channel, and that's what it was on. We did have it here in St. Louis. I lived down in DeSoto at the time, and I could get it there. But about 2/3 of the country couldn't get Fox, and it was this huge thing. And, you couldn't watch it online. You couldn't even watch it on, like, VHS at that point. Or, well, I guess you could if you had a friend that got the signal and taped it for you. But you didn't have a lot of options to watch it. But then, it snowballed and snowballed and snowballed to where it's not just an American culture, it's sort of a world cultural thing. There is a lot of kind of amazing crossover. I had a friend when I was an undergrad who studied abroad in Italy, and she was amazed how popular The Simpsons was in Italy circa, like 2003 or something like that. But yeah, so to satisfy like such a huge worldwide audience, I do think it's pretty incredible. By virtue of the fact that they didn't fail is kind of amazing. But then, like I said, you can kind of come back and appreciate the film on its own terms. It's so like fleet-footed. It doesn't give you space to get tired of watching it or like reconsider whether it was a good idea to attempt this thing or not. I don't know. I was glad for this opportunity to go back and watch it a couple more times, and I'm sure I'll watch it a bunch more times before I die.
You ever tried going mad without power? It's boring. No one listens to you.
Shh. They slid my ticket across the table and I said, "Sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl."